forgot to turn my light on. What's up? What's up? Today on the show, we're going to be looking at a lot of the upcoming IPOs that are in the pipeline. Recently, we got news about OpenAI potentially going public, IPOing at the later part of this year to potentially beat out Anthropic, who is also rumored to potentially go public this year. And they're probably the two biggest AI companies competing against each other. I think Google's probably in there with Gemini, but they're kind of the two pure play AI companies. And I am personally looking forward to both IPOs. More so Anthropic for long term, but OpenAI just to buy the hype, because I guarantee it'll just be crazy. And then the wild card, I guess not a wild card, but the other big IPO this year is potentially SpaceX. And there's just been a lot of, I'd say drama, but just a lot of news drama around. There's always drama around Elon Musk, but drama around whether he's going to merge XAI with SpaceX or potentially merge Tesla with SpaceX. To me, merging any one of those companies with SpaceX makes zero sense, but yeah, I don't know. XAI makes more sense than Tesla because Tesla's already a public company, but it does in the context of like what the product provides. I don't know. And just shout out here to my site, blackpineinsights.com. The name's probably going to change, but it's kind of my ongoing project where I have AI. Right now I'm using Claude Sonnet 4.5 to fully make kind of like a news briefing right now just on technology, and I feed it a bunch of headlines and other data. It does its own research, it looks up things, and I try and kind of have it really match similar to the voice that I would normally have, and it covers a lot of topics that I am just interested in. And I recently redid it. I completely remade the pipeline, so it hopefully is more accurate. It has a little bit better takes, and it just sounds a little bit better. The writing is just better. And I have it right now. I have it individually make each section here. Before I just kind of had to do it in like a one shot, and it seemed to really improve it. But and it decides what to write based off of just general kind of goals that I give it, and it decided to write about that make the headline Musk's empire consolidates, and I think actually not a bad headline. And it talks about kind of actually what we're going to be talking about today, and that's actually the goal of this. Is this was originally supposed to be for me personally, because I just wanted something that understood my taste in news, and it kind of generated a report for that. So yeah, anyways, it's a little wonky right now. I recently redid the like design of it, and it's like these buttons don't work, and it's kind of messy, but I'll function over form right now. And then quick personal shout out again. Blind flashbang. I also recently remade my personal site, bradybellini.com. And I actually have a separate Brady's Brain section here. And I'll put maybe VODs and stuff here, but I published a new essay, I guess you could say, for Technonomicon, which is kind of my like writing critique on technology kind of brand. And I wrote about prediction markets and just my general thoughts on them. And I look at the data to pretty much just come to the conclusion that prediction markets are sports betting 2.0. So if you want to read that, feel free to read it here. I also post on Substack, but you can read it here. I made sure to I like my fonts and stuff. It really fits on my aesthetic, but I ensure I added a readable mode for everyone, because it's a little hard to read this small text here. So hopefully this is a little better. But if not, let me know. I'm having to open adjust that still. And also this is actually working now, so this goes to my email list that I'm going to start sending out whenever I feel like it. No commitments. So this is kind of my central hub now. I don't have, before I had bradysbrain.com. I'm going to put that the redirect to just probably bradybellini.com/brain here, or just my site. Same with Technonomicon. So yeah, if you want to keep up with all of my stuff, this is the best place. Okay. So jumping into the news, I'm just kind of winging it a little bit today. Let's start off with Anthropic, or OpenAI. Wait, where is the article? There we go. OpenAI. So I think last stream we were talking about all of the devices, the AI devices, because Apple rumored to have one coming out. And we also mentioned OpenAI. And we actually, in the past few streams, we've been looking at OpenAI's kind of hardware plans. And the hardware plans are supposed to be a big unlock for them. And that is kind of, maybe not everything, but OpenAI creating a platform, creating a way to generate revenue that isn't like people paying them $20 a month or just paying for the API. We saw that they're going to be putting ads in ChatGPT. That's another line of revenue. And they're actually targeting a very high kind of cost per click. The ads are actually kind of expensive, and they're targeting a price that's actually more expensive than what Meta, which is one of the biggest companies that connect advertisers with users or consumers. That Meta is just an advertising company. And actually, that's we could talk about that later. And Meta just announced earnings yesterday, day before, this past week, and they are using AI actually, in a good way to make their ad business more efficient, match people who are more likely to click on ads, etc. And that's actually, and we've reported on this previously here on the stream, but that's a fantastic way to actually use AI to increase margins and generate money within the business. And also a way that I feel like doesn't necessarily put someone out of a job too, like just making things more efficient. And OpenAI is obviously now trying to jump into that ad market because people spend a lot of time on ChatGPT. And they also use it a lot to help you shop and personalize and find, things. And so, it is a good match, but it's, I think there's a lot of other concerns that are likely to pop up, like how things are being influenced, although they said that nothing will change. But yeah, I was just watching a Black Mirror episode with my girlfriend where it was like a subscription model to kind of operate your brain pretty much. And the cheaper subscription model would have the person who's under that subscription, whose brain they have under control, recite ads out loud at random times to subsidize the subscription costs. And obviously that's an extreme case, but that's kind of where we're getting at, where it's like, and if you ask a question to ChatGPT, it's like, is it gonna try and insert some product recommendation that someone's paying to put in here within your message? They say it's not, but that's kind of the dystopic worst case scenario. Anyways, my point is OpenAI's looking for other lines of revenue, and they likely want to boost things as much as they can before the IPO, which Wall Street Journal kind of reported here yesterday about, or that could potentially be in the fourth quarter. Um, and their AI device, though, is originally was a big part of their revenue generator, because if you have some sort of viral device, people pay a few $100 for, and then you're able to start collecting more unique data that's maybe out in the world, the real world, not in like simulated environments or within this strict chat back and forth type of interface. Could collect pictures, images, data that could set them apart, I guess. Granted, there's a lot. I still feel like there's that trust gap that I've talked about. I think it's even on my YouTube channel. I still have like, do you trust OpenAI? Well, some of that stuff may be outdated, and I still hold to that point where it's like, yeah, like a lot of people still don't trust letting something in like that. And there's that recently, I don't even know what it's called, Claudebot, Moltbot, OpenClaw. I think OpenClaw is what they settled on. You have to give it access to some things that an AI maybe doesn't otherwise have access to. I haven't tried it out because I just don't not super comfortable with that yet. But anyways, my point is OpenAI wants to generate revenue with this device that they're potentially selling, and just hardware in general. And similarly, I think it's also what Meta is trying to do with their smart glasses, where they want to create a platform that they have control over, that they could kind of take margins from for developers. And I think Sam Altman is trying to do that, and they are also talking about a potential social media site. And again, that's just like another platform that they can sell ads against, like collect data from, have developers build applications, apps on top of, take a cut of anything that they might make from that, which is essentially what Google and Apple and partly Microsoft do as well. And that's why Apple and Google have very valuable platforms, and that's kind of, it seems like, what's going on right now with OpenAI, and similarly with Meta and what they're trying to do with Project Hyperion and their future wearables and mainly smart glasses, though. So Anthropic, though, on the other hand, is definitely focused more on commercial customers with their API, getting into actually integrating and helping businesses solve problems with their models. And it seems to be much more sustainable for one, and it's less, I don't want to say it's less risky, but it just seems to be more of a safe bet. Once a business likes your model, it's fully integrated within their systems and processes. Like, it's hard to just rip that out. And I think people thought that there would be more commoditization at the model layer, and while I think that is true in terms of pricing, I think they're all models kind of do have different personalities, so to speak. And I think Anthropic is really done well on that part, and it isn't always as simple as just swapping a model in and out. It kind of understands things differently. It could have Anthropic has this large constitution, which is kind of like the system prompt or the rules that Claude has to follow, and they recently updated that. But I think there's more than just it's more than just commoditizing the models at this point. And Anthropic is actually making revenue. They did just push back their projections a little bit, and they're raising money right now. Amazon has been a big investor in Anthropic, and I think it's kind of the relationship I'm seeing is like Amazon to Anthropic is like Microsoft to OpenAI, maybe a little bit less loose, but I think Anthropic has to they exclusively use Amazon's data centers and Trainium, which is Amazon's GPU, competing with NVIDIA, similar to Google's TPU. I wonder if I actually haven't read this, but Yeah, it says Amazon's also put money in OpenAI's competitor Anthropic, has been investing heavily in AI infrastructure, also cutting costs internally. Yeah, actually, Amazon just announced 16,000. Yeah, right here. Um, job cuts, mainly in corporate, which is here in Bellevue. That's, you know, the job market's already hard, and now we're just getting flooded with more people who have Amazon on their resume. Doesn't hard spot for me to be in looking for a job, but it is what it is. Yeah, but as Amazon's deep dive with Anthropic, companies invested $8 billion in the startup as late 2024, and is one of its key cloud providers. Is developed an $11 billion data center campus for Anthropic in Indiana. Yeah, this is what I was talking about here. So Amazon obviously is hedging their bets. I think Google has also invested in OpenAI and Anthropic. Microsoft, I think, is also obviously invested in OpenAI, but also Anthropic. And I think there's a I thought I saw something else too on Anthropic raising money recently again as well. But anyways, I guess my point is Anthropic is has a much more sustainable business, and they aren't reliant on going viral or generating a bunch of consumer hype. And I think a good example of this would be this OpenAI Sora app, which was their AI generated their video generation social media app, I guess. Which this is recent. The 15th is like a week or 2 weeks ago. It's pretty much just like losing popularity, and I think that's a big part of a lot of this AI stuff. And I can't exactly put it into words because I feel like it's similar to just the general trend of short form video and just the general sentiment of like people's attention spans worsening, brain rot, whatever you want to call it. I think that's kind of part of it. It's like this was, these were funny, short form style videos that were generated. And I think the fact that there is no barrier to what you could make, it almost like it's hard to be surprised about what comes of it. And I think it's also just like in similar form with short form video, there's the attention is it has low saturation, I guess. Like eating a bowl of cereal. It's like you might feel full for 10 minutes and then it goes away quickly. I think it's similar to people's attention spans and kind of what Sora was like capitalizing on. And I think that's going to just be a general struggle for OpenAI with all of their products. And with competition just being very high, it's like things just move quickly. And also, I feel like the Sora thing is, they're competing with Instagram, YouTube, Netflix. They're competing with many more things than just another AI video generator company. And I think that also is going to pose struggles for more like stickiness and longevity. And I think obviously OpenAI has ChatGPT, and that's been their core driver. And I'm thinking back to this interview Steve Ballmer I listened to with the guys at Acquired, where Steve Ballmer said that most companies, especially platform companies, really are good at really just one thing, maybe two things. And I think for Microsoft, he gave Windows, and then he gave Office, and then I think he said maybe Xbox. And I think for Apple, it's like iPhone, Mac, and that's really it. He talked about some others, but I can't think of it. But it was really insightful, and I think thinking about it from this perspective, it's like OpenAI obviously has ChatGPT, and that's their stickiness, that's their thing that they're good at. But being another thing would have to be like their AI device. It's like, can they have another rise in use like how ChatGPT was and how fast it gained users? Can that happen another time? and they've proven that they can go viral, especially with the Sora stuff, especially with the Studio Ghibli image generation stuff. But again, I feel like that those have low saturation, and I think that this makes it a little harder to be stickier. Anyways, can they be Anthropic to market, and will that actually matter? Like I said before, I shit talk OpenAI a lot because I think they're driven on hype and everything, and I just value Anthropic just because they're a little more grounded, pragmatic. The CEO Dario Amodei definitely says a lot of crazy shit, but like I think it's OpenAI's game to lose at this point. Is kind of the point. I don't. It's not new for companies to IPO when they don't have like revenue, but they need to continue to show growth in aspects of the business. And ChatGPT is very like, I keep using the word saturated in different contexts. I'm sure it's so confusing, but I feel like it is kind of getting saturated. Like it has a lot of users already, and can they continue that growth? Post IPO. And can they actually make money, go through with all their investments that they have said? Like I feel like there's just a lot of risks, and I'm curious to read their S2 or S3 or whatever, I can't remember what the document is, that they have to submit about their risks and what they see as what OpenAI personally see, not personally, but like as a business sees as risks themselves instead of people speculating. And whether it will actually generate as much money as they want. Yeah, okay. OpenAI is laying the groundwork for public listing in the fourth quarter of this year. People familiar with the matter said, accelerating its plans as competition with rival Anthropic intensifies. The $500 billion startup is holding informal talks with Wall Street banks about a potential initial public offering. People said is growing finance team that includes a new hire of chief accounting officer, a new corporate business officer who will oversee investor relations, and also usually in OpenAI, I don't think is doing this, but a lot of times they'll like pause hiring, or they'll even do layoffs because they want to like just have good numbers going into the IPO, or they'll kind of do things before the IPO that signal they're going to IPO. I don't know how much OpenAI has been like. Obviously, they listed here who they're hiring, but I guess will they actually IPO in the last half of this year? Expect to be a blockbuster year for stock market debuts after a recent drought, and some on Wall Street expecting that 2026 could be the biggest year ever for IPOs. Yeah, and OpenAI, Anthropic, and SpaceX. And I think in my title I put Discord, which is potential. It said as early as March of this year. I have this here for this is January 7th, and that's like it's end of January. Like that's like in less than a month. And I think Discord will even bump here, but we'll talk about them later. And also Stripe and Databricks. Databricks is also another big one. What are they on? They are on their series. I want to say L. Oh, come on, they didn't list it here. It's like Databricks has literally kept raising money, and like they've gone through all the like usually like startup fundraising rounds, they go by like letters, so it'd be like seed, which is kind of pre product market fit maybe, but then it's just like series A, B, C, D, so forth, and like Databricks is on like series L or something, like A, B, C, D, E, F, G, H, I, J, K. It's like, guys, just IPO at this point, like Jesus. Anyways, so SpaceX, among the closely watched tech earnings that could go public through listing activity, has also picked up smaller companies, pulling off successful public listing last year. So listing by year's end is likely to be difficult for ChatGPT Maker, which is still confronting challenges of a fast-growing startup. Yeah, and again, like you need to like you still need to like show some numbers. Like you can't IPO and then just be like, okay, yeah, sorry, growth slowed. Oh yeah, okay, yeah, we're still not gonna make money. Like people will just sell the stock. And especially considering how much people have invested into OpenAI and how much OpenAI actually needs to, how much revenue they actually need to make back, to have the investors make back their investment. Like, you know, Amazon investing $50 billion, OpenAI is going to have to be worth $20 trillion for them to make back this money, you know, and like that's going to be a long time. And so I think it's really going to be a testament of how long people are willing to wait. SpaceX or Tesla, SpaceX, any of Elon Musk companies might be a good example because people more so buy into Elon Musk personally versus the execution, you know, the actual numbers of the company. You know, I think Tesla being, you know, worth, I don't know what, like over $1 trillion when, you know, it arguably doesn't make as much, you know, make as many cars as like Ford or Toyota, but it's all based off of the future like robo-taxi framing. You know, I think that's kind of like a good example of like how OpenAI could be, and people be more so trusting Sam Altman and, you know, that he would execute rather than what the OpenAI numbers say, which is exactly why I wouldn't. I'm not going to buy OpenAI, uh, or hold OpenAI. Sorry, I definitely participate in the IPO because I think it'll pop off, at least initially. The company's recently made changes to its leadership ranks, and it's contending with fierce competition to its core consumer business from Google. Yep. Prompting it to declare a weeks-long code red effort to improve the quality of ChatGPT. This happened a few weeks, I think, beginning of the year. Because again, like I think, you know, OpenAI was it was spreading themselves thin. They're working like it seemed like every few weeks they had these huge product launches, but again, like they weren't actually sticky. And I feel like a lot of times too, they kind of cannibalized their own products in a way where there's just like a lot of overlap. And so even me, like who I feel like I'm generally good at applying, you know, figure out how to use new technologies. Like a lot of it is just like, okay, so I could do this, but just like in a different UI, but like it still does the same thing as, you know, this other product, like their agents, like browsing and stuff. Like, yeah, I feel like a lot of that didn't really pan out, and it's not as sticky as they had hoped. And I think again, that's kind of like Google launching, you know, new products all the time, but none of them being as successful as Gmail or as successful as Google Search or as successful as YouTube, and so they axe it. OpenAI I feel like was doing that, but they're like still maintaining everything, and people really just used it still to just chat, like to talk to the models, and they weren't using as much as of these, you know, new products that I'm sure they spent a lot of time and money to make, and just, you know, focusing on improving the overall chat experience of ChatGPT is probably, you know, the better thing to do. You know, just being really good at one thing is a good way to start, and then you could, you know, start to spread out a little more. But I think it's a balance because yeah, it's like they still have to compete with Google, you know, Anthropic more so on the commercial API side, but still with Claude. And Claude recently had their co-work. You know, Anthropic's really good at coding and their Claude Code and such, and their models in general, especially Opus 4.5. It's fantastic at coding. I've been using it with AMP code. That's the model they've used, Opus 4.5, and it's great. It could do a lot on its own. So I think, you know, it's like they need to balance like still competing, but in, you know, launching new stuff, but also still figure out their core product, ChatGPT, and improving it to keep people like still within their platform. Yeah, and then there's this case. OpenAI is headed to a trial case brought by co-founder Elon Musk, who's seeking up to $134 billion in damages. Elon Musk, no offense, is just doing this to fuck with them. You know, it's hard to take this in. It's hard to look at this in a vacuum when Elon Musk has his own company, his own AI company, XAI, that's directly competing with OpenAI. Like, it's like, okay, well, you know, how do we know you're not doing this just to get rid of the competition or to slow them down or whatever. And Elon Musk could personally fund this vendetta, but OpenAI has to, put time and resources into this on their own as a company. So I don't, it's kind of crazy. It's kind of a form of, not necessarily regulatory capture, but just taking advantage of the system. I don't know. It says an IPO could help the AI startup shore up market confidence in its finances after investors question how it would pay for AI infrastructure and chip deals that totaled hundreds of billions of dollars in the coming years. Yes, $1.4 trillion. And it's probably gone up a little more since then, but 1.4 trillion since I last looked. I may have pulled it up. No. But yeah, it's a lot of money. And they still need that. They need to come up with some of that money still. Yeah. Am I excited to be a public company CEO? 0%. That's so funny. Sam Altman said that. Am I excited for that? Because, especially coming from startup culture, it's like move fast, break things, like try things out, like throw things at the board. They don't work. Okay, cool. Like that's all fine, when you're a private company, but you need to justify every, move you make now in the public markets, because shareholders going to be like, why are you spending this money? How's it going to result in a return on, our investment? And so I think it's definitely going to be a lot more work for him, less freedom probably in a way. But again, like Sam Altman kind of has that, Elon Musk type of mentality where I think he's getting people to people to trust him in how, in like his vision that he sees. I'm excited for OpenAI to be a public company. In some ways, I am, and in some ways, I think it'd be really annoying. Chief Executive Sam Altman said on the Big Technology podcast in December, as OpenAI goes public, he's expected to delegate some responsibility to former Instacart CEO Fidji Simo, who leads OpenAI's product and business teams as its CEO of applications. Yeah, and he came in, it seems like, to help build out like their kind of application suite, so to speak, or at least help build the platforms that I think OpenAI or Sam Altman arguably need to bring in more revenue. OpenAI executives have privately expressed concerns about Anthropic beating the company to an IPO. People familiar with the matter said Anthropic, founded by former OpenAI leaders, has told financial partners that it is open to listing by the end of this year. The startup sales are soaring, thanks largely to the popularity of its viral coding agent, Claude Code. It's funny that like more legacy media is like this viral coding agent, but like Claude Code is, I swear it's been popular, at least as someone who follows the space closely, like for a long time. But I guess more recently came viral. And that's what because my Black Pine Insights here, my little news site, you could say it's like 100% vibe coded. Granted, I wrote some code and I had to like adjust a lot of things. But part of it I actually used Claude Code for, but I'm using Claude 4 Opus 4.5, Opus 4.5, which is the model behind the scenes. So I'm using Anthropic to help me code this, mainly in the pipeline and like all the stuff that I'm using. I'm using Go, it's a programming language, because I could just deploy it in a single application. And Pocket Base actually as the kind of back-end content management system. I recently updated that so I can actually control what it says on here. If the AI says something that should not be said, then I can actually adjust this now. I didn't even have that for it. Anyways, yeah, and it's in the process of raising a funding round that will likely exceed an initial $10 billion target. People are familiar said, yeah, because Anthropic's raising money right now. Whichever company lists first probably would benefit from a larger group of public marketing investors, including individual investors who want exposure to the new wave of generative AI companies. OpenAI and Anthropic are also competing against Musk's SpaceX, which is aiming to do an IPO as early as this summer that would value it at more than $1 trillion. People from now have said. Yeah, owner of Wall Street Journal works with OpenAI. Anthropic has held talks with banks interested in helping the company's IPO. People from other, can we shorten this? PFWTMS. People familiar with the matter said it's like the journalist, I don't know, scapegoat in a way. It has made a string of finance hires to potentially help take the company public, including Andrew Zloto, who leads capital markets, and Blackstone investor Kevin Chang. People familiar with the matter said. Jesus Christ, bro. PFWTMS. Chang's hire hasn't been previously reported. Okay, interesting. Yeah, Blackstone, just, biggest private investment companies. Let's look up Kevin Chang real quick. Look at his LinkedIn. Social media manager, 2 League of Legends. Definitely not that Kevin Chang. Blackstone. Principal at the Blackstone Group. He worked for SoftBank previously too. Interesting. JP Morgan. Yeah, Vision Fund. This is interesting. And now he's at enterprise software growth and private. Yeah, okay. Interesting. Okay, this is actually interesting because these are more consumer focused. Obviously, Snowflake isn't, Wiz isn't, which Wiz I think got acquired by Google, or they were supposed to be acquired by Google, and then it like fell out. Yeah, Alpha would acquire Wiz for $32 billion. It was a big deal. Cloudinary, which is, yeah, that's another one. They're not public as far as I'm aware. Cvent, I've not heard of these guys. Banner Health, I'm assuming. Banner, maybe, yeah, Banner. This is what I thought. Maybe not that. But also could be that he did have healthcare coverage. I see. Here's healthcare. Interesting. Bumble, GeoComply, Hotel Engine. Berkeley. Interesting. So it seems like he'd be a good fit just based off of like what he's worked on and his past experience working at SoftBank Vision Fund for consumer internet, these things. So that seems like a good hire. OpenAI and Anthropic are both losing billions of dollars every year as they work to build new AI tools and power their existing products. Anthropic expects to break even for the first time in 2028. Yeah, and this is much sooner than OpenAI. Yeah, 2 years earlier than OpenAI. And this alone, I like this because I think it kind of says something about the priorities. Granted, I wouldn't be surprised if this gets pushed back more depending on how the market adjusts in the next 2 years, because that 2020 is still very far out. And I think, yeah, it says something about the priorities. Considering Anthropic is more focused on the commercial enterprise side, at least, with integrating it, and ChatGPT is more focused, OpenAI is focused on consumer. I don't know. I guess in my head of the lines, that makes sense to me. I think consumer market's much more finicky. You need much higher volume and scale. You need much higher numbers to make it more sustainable, and you need higher stickiness. Just looking at like Apple, I think Apple's like the perfect, one of the most perfect consumer companies. In that, you kind of just have to like think about what makes Apple successful. It's like their walled gardens, keeping everyone within their ecosystem, having seamless transition between iPhone, and Mac, and having products that allows people to stay within that ecosystem, having a platform that they could take rent from, their 30% cut for services. They also have ads. So I think like Apple is more so of a better blueprint for like what OpenAI should be going for than anything. Google's also another one. I think they're also a good example of but I think of Google a little bit more on the enterprise business side because they have Google Cloud Compute. They're a hyperscaler. They serve other businesses quite a bit, especially for ads too. Because yeah. Anyways, I think Anthropic having profitability sooner is I like that as an investor much more than OpenAI. Just their numbers in general, like I value that more. I think next stream too. I want to talk about all of my investments and why I'm invested in them because a lot of them tie into like my opinions and how I shape my opinions here. And I think about like a lot of this in similar ways. So maybe that's a future video or future stream. Okay, OpenAI in the throes of a fundraising campaign that could take place for much of this year in what will be a pre-IPO round. Okay, I actually like just thinking about this more because OpenAI has been fundraising, like raising money, and I felt as though they're trying to pull together $100 billion, and it just didn't seem to come together as easily as I think people thought. And I think it's part of it is like a lot of people already given a lot of money, and it's going to take so much for them to make that back. And OpenAI framing this as this is your last chance before pre-IPO is just a way to drum up, more hype and incentivize people more to bring in to invest money earlier. Yeah. So yeah, I'm just curious how this plays out here and like what actually happens and also what price that the stock is going to be at. I think it's going to be like kind of expensive, and in like maybe not. Maybe it'll be cheaper, but they'll have many more shares. And I'm also curious what platforms it'll be available on. It has to be available on Robinhood. That's kind of what I'm betting. E-Trade is also another. E-Trade is owned by Morgan Stanley, and they also have a lot of IPOs. I mainly use Charles Schwab. I like Charles Schwab. I also own Charles Schwab stock, but they never have any IPOs. But I think it's just they don't really help people help business IPO. Yeah, it says SoftBank is discussing invest about $30 billion, and OpenAI had discussions with Amazon for an investment of as much as $50 billion. Andy Jassy, the tech giant's chief executive, person leading negotiations, Sam Altman, Trump board. And it does feel bad reading this after Amazon laid off 30,000 employees. And I think a lot of it is still bloat from COVID, but also I think but CEOs, companies are using kind of that as still an excuse to just thin out the ranks, especially middle management, which I'm actually kind of in favor of. I hate middle management, but yeah, I'm sure as an employee it feels bad reading that. Okay. Wait, what did I just close? Oh yeah. The Wikipedia and Wall Street Journal logo looks so close. Yeah, and here it is, Amazon investing $50 billion in OpenAI, which is crazy. If again, pre-IPO, I could see this being some sort of selling point, and for Amazon, maybe they could make the money back quicker, or I don't know, but $50 billion, like half of the 100 that they're trying to get. And I wonder if Amazon is selling bonds for this, like where they're getting this money from. Are they just pulling from cash reserves? I feel like they've already spent a lot capital expenditure wise, and they are actually taking on debt now. Let's just see. I wonder where they're getting this from. OpenAI, which is public offerings aiming to raise capital from Middle Eastern sovereign wealth funds and other venture capital funds. The company existing investors include Thrive Capital, Costco Ventures, and MGX, United Arab Emirates Fund. Okay, wait. I'm actually just thinking back more about my comparison to OpenAI and Apple. I think that's the ideal situation, is that OpenAI turns out to be like Apple. They're a kind of consumer tech sweetheart. They, have the love of consumers. It's easy to use. They could build platforms. They can maybe sell hardware devices. They have software. Like, they kind of have the full picture. They have everything that they want. But I actually think maybe a more pessimistic, more bearish view is that OpenAI turns out to be like Meta, where they're pretty much just an advertising company. They have, ChatGPT is their platform, but they are, can't get a hold on a hardware device. Maybe they buy some companies to help boost that. Maybe that helps, but ultimately ChatGPT is still the main platform. They pretty much just become a middleman for people to sell ads. It's really good at targeting them, and that's it. Like I wouldn't be that's also a scenario. And also, I think once they're IPO'd, we could get an actually better idea about the demand and about their customers, because they're going to have to provide some information. Because I'm curious where they are actually seeing traction outside of just pure ChatGPT, people using in ChatGPT. Like I'm curious, like how they're actually making money there. Yeah, a deal with Amazon would further deepen the company's relationship. While the startup has long relied on Microsoft for computing power, it struck a deal with AWS in November to purchase $38 billion of computing services over multiple years. Yeah, so I mean, like, I guess when you take this into consideration, I'm sure it ties back into this $50 billion here as, the kind of circular investments we've been seeing, or the vendor financing, which is the more traditional way of stating it. So I am curious, like, what this $50 billion actually means. The company's invested $8 billion in startup as late 2024. It's one of its key cloud providers. And I mean, like, the cloud provider stuff is like, there are many cloud providers, and every startup needs, or, it's not every startup, but all the big guys like Anthropic, OpenAI, Meta, like Meta probably does most of their own, but they all need third party cloud providers. And so, like, I don't know, I guess this isn't like surprising. There's really only, it's like Microsoft Azure, Google Cloud Platform, and Amazon Web Services. Like, those are kind of the primary three. Like, outside of that, it's just like, you're going for CoreWeave, or a pure data center type of person play, like or more of a software play, like Cloudflare or someone. But yeah, I don't know. Okay, and then SoftBank is also seems to be investing up to 30 billion more in OpenAI. SoftBank also recently gave OpenAI $50 billion, which they had to pretty much look under the cushions of the fucking, SoftBank couch to find the change to scrounge up for that $50 billion. And they just barely made it out. And I think they even took debt to take it on. So SoftBank is already one of OpenAI's largest shareholders, with a stake that grew to 11% in December when it invested $22 billion. In a statement at the time, SoftBank chairman Masayoshi Son said the firm was deeply aligned with OpenAI's vision to fund OpenAI's bet. SoftBank sold its stake in chipmaker Nvidia for $5.8 billion. And like, literally, it's like, there's a video of like Masayoshi Son and Jensen Huang, the Nvidia CEO, like, where Nvidia's Jensen Huang mentioned how Masayoshi Son sold his Nvidia stake like too early, and like how much it would have been worth. And like Masayoshi Son was like, oh, like he was like literally like felt so bad. It's like, yeah. OpenAI needs substantial funding to continue developing its artificial intelligence models, and paying for its vast computing needs, and retaining top researchers in an increasingly competitive market. And also notably on that point is a lot of OpenAI is putting a lot of money towards like shares, like I can't think of the right word, but like share based compensation, giving its employees equity in the company, and a lot of money is going towards that, and I think talent is harder to come by, and so they kind of have to, in a way, do this just to keep talent. So it's hard to balance. The OpenAI, which is weighing potential initial public offering, is also aiming to raise capital from Middle East. Yeah, we saw that. Okay, now let's talk about SpaceX IPO, Tesla. Actually, I'm gonna go to the bathroom, and then we'll jump right into this. All right. Okay, so next, SpaceX IPO. Now, no. Oh yeah, I guess OpenAI is retiring their old models. Oh yeah, here actually let's watch a video on this here. Bloomberg.
Sources tell us that SpaceX and Tesla have considered some sort of merger between those two. And you see Tesla push higher in the after hours after we broke that story. They've also looked at a merger or combination between SpaceX and xAI. My understanding is that there is a group of investors that are pushing very much on the Tesla idea, but nothing is final. As we all know, the background context is that SpaceX is making preparations for an IPO some point in the middle of this year. So that's what's being looked at. And, we don't know the full extent of the mechanisms, the structures that are being proposed. What we do know is that, based on what we're told by sources, there will be some financing considerations for both potential combinations, which are...
And to me, that's what this is. It seems like just some sort of financial engineering. Elon Musk is, a lot of his businesses are built on hype and future promises. He said that Tesla should be considered more a robotics company than a car manufacturer, or an AI company or something, which is crazy to me. That makes no sense. And like, I just, merging them, like, to me, it just doesn't make much sense unless he just wants to run one company and be at the helm of that single company and like move Tesla less from a consumer car company to, more like Waymo commercial, like robotaxi stuff. And then whatever Optimus robots, humanoid robot plans he has, which I don't know about that yet. Still unproven.
Distinct, and that there will be an eye on how sovereign wealth funds, particularly those in the Gulf, can help facilitate this.
Because really the build out of artificial intelligence investments that Elon Musk is thinking in terms of all of his companies into artificial intelligence is huge, isn't it? What did we hear this week? $20 billion or so?
Yeah, so Tesla's capital expenditure commitment for 2026 is $20 billion. It excludes some of the long-term projects that Musk outlined on its own fab, which you can read my reporting on, and around solar. But there has always been a historic linkage between the different Elon Musk companies. There are engineers that have worked on both Tesla projects and SpaceX projects, particularly on materials. There is a world where, the motivation for SpaceX to IPO is for space-based data center. Those designs, though we haven't seen them, will need solar arrays. Yeah. Tesla is moving deeper in.
Okay, to me, this seems like more of a vertical integration play than it is like a merger, because I feel like he would have to restructure the services that these companies provide. Like, what he's saying is more so these are side products of what Tesla does. It's not like you're buying, like merging Tesla because, oh, we want Tesla cars. It's like, no, it's like Tesla makes batteries, they make solar panels, they make all these different parts that also, play into what SpaceX does. Like I feel like that's like the framing that's completely different framing.
To solar. xAI is a customer of Tesla. And now, as of last night, we know Tesla is an investor in xAI. It bought $2 billion of preferred equity. So we're trying to unpick this. But the story we broke is that both have been looked at. A potential SpaceX and Tesla combination, and, as Reuters reported before us, a SpaceX and xAI combination of some sort.
Yeah, that to me just just makes things so much more confusing.
What we know, two distinct proposed ideas, scenarios, transactions. My understanding from sources is that SpaceX investors are particularly pushing this idea of a combination with Tesla. Either way, highly unusual, because we thought that SpaceX was on track for an IPO mid-year. What do we need to know?
Yeah, because I feel like if all of a sudden Tesla merges with SpaceX, Tesla's already a public company, like, I feel like all of those change a lot of like what people are actually buying and like what the point of the SpaceX IPO is. And also the whole data center and space thing, just like I feel like that was only recent news. In the past we've covered StarCloud, which is I want to say they're kind of the OG data center and space people. I feel like I actually brought them up last stream. But like I feel like this data center in space was just like a new thing all of a sudden, that like Google is testing it, putting a few GPUs in space. Then all of a sudden people are like, this is the next paradigm. And then like I just feel like it all manifested within like the last month, like more seriously. This StarCloud's been working on it for a long time, and they actually have things in space. Ironically, no, not ironically, but launched by SpaceX here. This is NVIDIA H100, which is very outdated now. We talked about this a little bit I almost said last class. All right, students. Last stream with the Starlink and Amazon's Project Kuiper, whatever they're changing the name to now. Yeah, and this is kind of what the end goal is. It's having compute in space like this. But again, as usual with Elon Musk stuff, this is like completely unproven, like in a way. It's like scaling it like they mentioned. Starlink is set up very easily to take advantage of this, where if you could just add a few GPUs so actually I take that back. Yeah, because you could add a few GPUs to a Starlink satellite, but Starlink satellites are meant to burn up in the atmosphere and just disappear pretty much once they're every, I don't know what their cycle is now, but like last time it was probably like every 5 or so years, which also coincides with the general how GPUs are like sunsetted, is about every 5 years is when they are considered like outdated, and that's when like big tech companies write them off as kind of like worthless in a way. But I doubt you'd want to be burning up those in the atmosphere, even if they are 5 years old. Like that, I don't know if that's the best option. Anyways, yeah, I guess my whole point is like this is just like it's still extremely speculative and unproven, and it only really started to manifest like recently. And if that's like their complete framing, it's like okay, that changes like everything. I guess like I don't know.
Well, they still may IPO this year. It's, there seems to be a lot of ideas kicking around at the corporate table. It's certainly faster to do a combination between an existing public company than it is to do an IPO. It's cheaper. You don't have to have a bank come in and underwrite. You don't have to do a roadshow.
Yep.
But you also have real drawbacks to this. You don't get to roll the pitch. You could have a sudden share sell-off where people don't like what they see. You're building a conglomerate, which historically people have not enjoyed investing in.
That's exactly what he's doing. And actually, I forgot to mention how XAI merged with Twitter X. Like that to me, I was like how, like why? It's like okay, the data, maybe, but like they're solving they're different markets that they're being involved in, and like the fact that they merged was that was weird. But then okay, if XAI merges with Tesla, it's like okay, sure, yeah, Tesla is like an AI company. They have their self-driving stuff and like all their technology, but like they sell cars ultimately. Like that's still their their product that they're creating. The car is the platform though, which I kind of have noticed, like think about Tesla almost like Apple, where the Tesla car is like the iPhone. It's like, what does Apple do? It's like they sell iPhones. Like that is ultimately their business. Yeah, it happens that they have a software platform that they're slowly monetizing with services and stuff, and that's growing, but ultimately they sell iPhones. And I think that's kind of similar with Tesla's, where Tesla, they sell cars. Yeah, it's shaping out to be a platform. It's more software driven. They're adding in services. I think they said the self-driving, full self-driving is gonna be like $99 a month. So I mean they're they're building it out, but ultimately they still need to sell Teslas to monetize, make more money beyond selling that initial car. And so I guess it like all these merging stuff just. They're creating like this tech conglomerate. Like that is exactly what they're I feel like happening, especially if all of those if they all merge together. Like it's and it like also from the conglomerate perspective, it makes it easier to like hide things or to do some more financial engineering. I think notably with like Xbox, it's like okay, they bought Activision Blizzard, but they're not reporting specifics now of Activision Blizzard like Activision Blizzard was when they were an individual, when they're their own company and had their own stock and everything. You lose some of that stuff, and so it just I don't know how this like people are buying it just because of Elon Musk, and it's like I wonder how long that will last, I guess is the point. It makes it less, like I would want to participate in the SpaceX IPO. I don't own Tesla because I just don't think, I don't really know, like, it doesn't make sense for me to buy it. I don't like just not companies I invest in, but someone like SpaceX, they make sense. They have business lines. I see how they're being useful. They are, on the frontier of space. They are the, largest space launch company. Starlink, that has been a proven, I think, technology that is growing fast, and we're seeing with other tech companies in other countries and regions wanting their own satellite constellation. Like that's a useful piece of infrastructure, and I'd want to invest in those businesses. It's like now that they're merging with Tesla, it's like okay, like Yeah, I don't know.
People don't feel that they can get enough visibility on the existing businesses. So
exactly what I just, I didn't pre-watch this video, sorry. But to me, it's just, that just seems to be a downside of conglomerates.
You're building a conglomerate, which historically people have not enjoyed investing in. People don't feel that they can get enough visibility on the existing businesses. So there's a real debate to be had, even within the companies, on whether this is a good idea or not.
Lauren, talk to why, for example, it might be a good idea for SpaceX and Tesla to grow closer in their interaction, because they already have a relationship, a strong one.
Yes, there's plenty of cross-pollination that already happens between SpaceX and Tesla and, all of Elon Musk's empire. And if you've noticed, he's talked a lot lately about ways in which that cross-pollination could, become more intense, right? He's spoken about Starship taking Optimus to the moon and Mars and things of that nature. There's also the option of using energy storage capabilities.
And this goes back to what I was saying, where if you're not selling cars anymore and you're just gonna take it, the components of the component businesses of Tesla and use it as a vertical integration, okay, sure, but are they going to sell cars still?
For these data centers in space that SpaceX or that Elon's been talking about. So there is some sense to be made in combining the companies as they already work so closely together already.
What we know is, again, two distinct scenarios are being discussed, and that's the new bit, right? They're being discussed because you have people like Chamath Palihapitiya, Bill Ackman, who have hypothesized about this anyway, Kyle. We know that Tesla has confirmed an investment in xAI just this week, $2 billion, and that SpaceX participated in an earlier round in xAI as well. Elon Inc. and a conglomerate is a bit of a regulatory headache, is it not?
Oh, it could be a massive regulatory headache. If you look.
Yeah, I wonder what the antitrust implications are of this, too. Granted, current administration, considering Elon Musk's relationship with the current administration, to me, it seems like it'll just be a hand-wavy type of, it's probably good, and Elon will just donate to Trump or some bullshit, but I'm sure there's antitrust implications for this.
Looking at two companies of this size, three companies of this size, presuming everyone keeps their valuations, you're looking at trillions of dollars. That kind of market capitalization is going to attract the scrutiny of government and regulators. It can't not.
Okay, regulatory hurdles abound. And actually, just to remind viewers, and as you all have written in the story at length, things can change. None of this is set in stone. This is still work in progress.
True.
But Lauren, what's also work in progress is everyone talking about wanting to put these data centers into space. And you just mentioned why there might be some sense to Tesla and SpaceX combining. But what would it...
No, that's like people investing in Tesla because they hope Optimus, their humanoid robot, will work out. But that's also like people investing in Tesla saying that the robotaxi thing will work out when, that's been pushed how many times, and they, Waymo's much further ahead, in my opinion. Again, that just goes back to kind of the whole Elon Musk thesis where people buy the future prospects, even though they just take so much longer to play out or just don't play out at all, how they said it.
Even that hypothesis, that view.
Right. So obviously a lot of this is being driven by Elon's latest grand vision of putting AI data centers into space. There's obviously a lot of pros that have been, talked about in terms of doing so. There's, depending on where you put them, there's constant access to solar energy because of where you put them in orbit. There's also a lot of space in space, and a lot of, these data centers do take up quite a lot of real estate here on Earth, and that can also come with a regulatory regulatory burden in order to get the right permits and things to do so. So there's a lot of benefits to moving to space, but there's also massive engineering challenges in order to make it work. For instance, that solar power we're talking about, we're going to need massive solar panels in order to run the kinds of data center sizes that Elon's been talking about. So that is going to be a challenge that they're going to have to work through. You're going to have to put radiators on these vehicles in order to cool them down. A lot of the
the cooling thing that's always been the biggest debate in the AI stuff in space. But I mean, you can't, generally speaking, using liquid in space is probably a little harder. You can't liquid to cool. Gravity obviously doesn't can't works in the opposite of how liquid works, and also it's freezing up there. Even though that sounds counterintuitive, you still need some sort of, it's in a vacuum, and so there's no air or something to go over the GPUs or whatever to cool them. People, and then I guess like the Star Cloud people, they say that like that's not an issue, and actually I don't know how they cool them, but I should probably look that up if I'm talking about it. I don't know if they have I know they have their white paper, but the white paper is like really old now. Where is the white paper? All right. Anyways, yeah. So, we'll see how this plays out. I just think it's weird. Yeah, it makes me less excited to invest in SpaceX if this is the case. Because I like SpaceX because they're good at being a space company. Kind of like going back to talking about platforms or companies and doing something that they're good at. Now it's like it just makes it less appealing. I think it's just some sort of financial engineering type of situation. Look up Tesla's stock price. Yeah, and Tesla recently cut models too to help with that. Up after hours, 3%. Wow. Wowzers. Let's just take a look at some of the big tech companies here. While we are here, there's been earnings. Microsoft obviously has been down. Like they tanked yesterday on earnings, even though they beat. But it's the cooling of Azure. With because they had high capital expenditures, despite strong performance in its Azure cloud segment. Concerns over spending have led to a 12% drop. Stock price, Microsoft has been my big tech company of choice. Google is really shaping out to be, and it's weird, like all of them are like, I guess some lowered and maintained, but Google's really shaping out to be a better company that I feel like fits more of my vision, especially in emerging markets, emerging technology. That's generally how I'd like to invest in. I could see how I see Google just taking bigger bets, quantum computing, self-driving cars, AI. They've definitely done a lot better there when compared to Microsoft. Granted, Microsoft is more on the enterprise business side. So yeah, and I mean, like, out of 64 ratings, this is still the case. Like, yeah, it's peculiar. Also, I guess just shows how fragile these companies are. Google has too many stocks. Google's up, and I think Google has earnings next week, if I am not mistaken. Yeah, I think Google's earnings next week. Actually, they show on Tech Meme. Yeah, February 4th, Google has earnings along with Qualcomm, which I'm also invested in. ARM, which is another big. They are. They make semiconductor, mainly licensing stuff, and then we have Amazon. Cloudflare, I'm also invested in Cloudflare. Cloudflare actually popped off with the Claude bot recently. Where? Oh yeah, Net. They popped off. They literally jumped like 14%. Looks like 8%. And they've since leveled out. And they've just kind of had a rough month though. Year to date, yeah, they've had a lot of big drops and then like a lot of rises. But I think they need to focus a little more on profitability now. Yeah. And a big part of I think Microsoft dropping too was software in general is kind of being commoditized in a sense with AI, because anyone could just make any piece of software that they want. Oh, you guys can't even see them. Sorry. With AI, you could just personalize any piece of software that you want. Pretty like good, like, and it's kind of part of the like vibe coding and all that, but more so just LLMs are just good at writing code. And that devalues these companies who have large software products that could maybe be easily replaced, or could be AI could code you a piece of personal software that does what they do but tailored to yourself, and you'll use it more, it'll solve a problem better, whatever. I think that's going to be a big trend in these these platforms, that is just like kind of a one size fits all. Might be less valuable. It'll probably be more valuable in the enterprise, which is what Microsoft is really known for, because you probably want less change in that instance. You want something to be a little more predictable. So yeah, I don't know. I'm deciding on whether to sell or not sell Microsoft probably in the next few months, before second half of this year. I want to understand the big tech companies, see which ones I see as being a better pick 10 years from now, 5 years from now, maybe not in the next year or two. I still think Microsoft is strong. They have a lot of strong brands, and they have a lot of they have like Xbox, they own Activision Blizzard, but they're really not taking advantage of that as much. And they have Azure. They have strong brand awareness, and they have strong products. They still have Windows, which a lot of people use Windows still, but I think they're kind of just like shit in the bed a little bit, like they've peed a little in Windows by forcing Copilot. Like, luckily it's not here, but like Copilot just all of a sudden just started booting up when Windows started. I didn't ask it to do that, It's like, now I'm like, bro, like, get out of here. It makes me want to use it less. Granted, that's probably just me, but I think they're coming out of graces with those who value, like, who like technology, because of just kind of the intrusive stuff they're doing. And also internally, I've read that they're forcing employees to use Copilot, but they don't like Copilot. It actually isn't a good product, and I think that also doesn't help. So I think Microsoft needs to find where they fit in the kind of AI world now, and they just haven't figured it out yet. Obviously, they're betting a lot on OpenAI, and I think in their not this last earnings this week, but their previous earnings end of last year, they clarified how much equity they have in OpenAI, and it was a significant amount. I think it was around like 20-ish% at when they announced it previously. So if OpenAI IPOs and that takes off, Microsoft could hopefully make back some of that. But that's their bet on AI. It's like Microsoft's internal models are nowhere near the frontier, I guess. I don't even know what I know they had the fee models. But I don't even know what like they've been pushing lately. Anyways, yeah, and so Microsoft has good lines of business. And also I think it doesn't help that this is just just based off of what I've read and everything, but it seems like we're kind of in a down market for games right now too. And like that, isn't helping Microsoft considering how large of a gaming division they have. They literally own Bethesda, they own Activision Blizzard, which has, a very good portfolio. They own I'm pretty sure they own Obsidian. Like they own these huge game development houses and developers and platforms and everything. And I think they should probably take advantage of that more. Xbox is like, I don't even know what the plan is for Xbox anymore. Anyways, yeah, so I think Microsoft is in a peculiar spot. And we got Amazon, and Amazon's probably doing pretty well. Let's look at them. Yeah, they've been doing all right. They went up a lot earlier this year. Still a strong buy from most analysts as well. And then Meta's like doing really good. That we saw their earnings recently did well. We're just having a sell off today. Yeah, look at this. Huge jump with their recent earnings. Still a strong buy. Meta's also someone I consider mainly because of their positioning for smart glasses. I think that they could be well positioned to take advantage of the wearables. And Zuckerberg is going to do everything he can to make that happen. And the Ray-Ban smart glasses are a good start. Bro, Mark Zuckerberg's middle name is Elliot. Mark Elliot Zuckerberg. Yeah, so I don't know. Microsoft is in a interesting spot right now. Oh wait, what was Microsoft year to date? They're actually down 10% year to date. That's crazy. Google's up 5%. With Amazon year to date up 2%. Yeah, man, Microsoft, yeah, it's interesting. What about Cloudflare year to date? Down 10%. Dang, I bought like up here. Yeah, I recently bought I'm down on that share, but I also bought before this even. Yeah, I bought it like 40, so I'm chilling in terms of overall. I still have confidence in Cloudflare. Like 20% of the internet goes through their internet traffic goes through the services. Like that's worth something. Then we have Qualcomm. Qualcomm's been one that I'm down on. Yeah, they've been kind of trending down, which I get temporarily why they're going down, but like they are going to be the ones that benefit from like all these AI wearable devices if they play out, but specifically smart glasses, which is, proven. They are powering the, Ray-Ban ones. They lost a contract to make like modems for iPhone. That they were a big Apple customer, and Apple's been slowly making their own chips and such, dropping Qualcomm as a customer. But especially now that like all of automotive type of stuff is becoming more technology driven, Qualcomm's stepping in to there. Obviously the wearables, they power the Meta Ray-Ban smart glasses, and also I'm pretty sure Meta's Project Hyperion, which is the full phone replacement smart glasses. And assuming that those take off, I think that they're positioned well to take advantage of that in just any wearable device. They also recently bought Adafruit, I think, which is like a consumer electronic tinker style company. But I think that's more so just like a play to get in people's pipeline, like learning pipeline sooner, so they can learn Qualcomm products and stuff. But yeah, so, and then there's Intel, and poor Intel, like they just cannot fucking get a break. Like they're up 16%, but they have not been doing good sales wise. Like, yeah, this is sad. And it sucks considering, they gave 10% equity or something, to the Trump administration, or to the government, you could say. And it really didn't help. Obviously, they've been, they're up now, but like, I think it's still going to be an uphill battle for Intel. I actually recently read Techery. Ben Thompson's for Techery. My, probably my favorite, my tech analyst. I enjoy his writing. Want to be like, I'm like a mini I want to be a mini version of Ben Thompson. But he argues that the hyperscalers are actually betting everything on TSMC is bad for, I think, obvious reasons of competition, and it's more so TSMC is taking a much more conservative approach to its growth and its capital expenditures compared to the big tech companies. And that's, TSMC really waited for AI to already be taken off to then, commit more to building, but it's kind of too late because just of the timelines. Oh, almost knocked my water over. Just because of the timelines that it takes to build like a whole extremely complex and advanced, chip fabrication facility, and that because of that, they are actually missing out. The big tech companies, the customers, are missing out on revenue because TSMC can't build the chips as fast as that their customers want them. And that puts the TSMC in a peculiar spot because they could start charging more because they're the only people who could manufacture these. They also can pass the risk off to its customers, like, Meta, Google, Microsoft, Amazon, Apple, Qualcomm, by just, taking a much more conservative approach, which then puts, the hyperscalers businesses, those who want chips, at risk because they're losing out on money. They are fronting the cost of these or not, but that's also bad. And they actually talk about Intel and saying how they're going to, like, it's beneficial for the other tech companies to have competition with TSMC. One, just for the fact that there's more capacity that they could build more chips from, but also just for risk. If TSMC shits the bed one day because of China or whatever else, like, then what? And he also says Samsung too, because I think Samsung also is making advanced chips. They have a facility, but the yields aren't as good. They're, I think I want to say he said, I don't know what he said, but they're significantly less than what the efficiency that TSMC brings. Same with Intel. Intel could have the capacity, but it's very inefficient. They just don't have they can't ramp things up like TSMC does, or make as advanced chips as TSMC can at the same yields. And probably in return, I think that also means cost. So yeah, this is a good read on TSMC here. So yeah, Intel's in a peculiar spot. There's also Global Foundry, which is spun out from I don't know if they're public though. Oh yeah, right here. This was spun out from AMD. And AMD actually had their own foundry, which foundry meaning like they make chips from scratch or whatever. This was under AMD and they spun out. And they have also not been doing that good. Like they're kind of out of the picture a lot of times. I think like just look, this volatility is insane. And I maybe it probably made sense for AMD at the time, but yeah, dang, AMD's down 6% today for what? Yeah, and AMD also has their own AI chips, MI450. Notably, I'm obviously invested in Qualcomm. Qualcomm's also creating an AI GPU, and they said it could be, I don't know when they said it'll be released, but that's also another more long-term like outlook for Qualcomm. Yeah, they're trying to get like AI GPUs, and they're breaking into just I think more PC style, like desktop computer style compute. I think with mini PC specifically, and that's kind of been a hot market as well. But anyways, okay, we'll talk about old Kevin Warsh here, because I've been following, big jump from tech here to economic stuff, but I've been following Federal Reserve drama, Jerome Powell, and just generally what has been going on there. Quick update. Interest rates were not lowered this week. And that, I'm sure, did not bode well for Trump's view on Jerome Powell. Trump wants interest rates to be cranked down. Generally, when there's lower interest rates, businesses are more likely to spend money. It doesn't really incentivize you to keep money in the bank account because you're not really getting much return on your money just sitting there. And so you want to deploy it. It also makes it cheaper to borrow money because you don't have to pay as much on interest. And so Trump just wants lower interest rates to stimulate the economy and stuff. That's also, though, the ZIRP, the zero interest, the period where we pretty much had zero interest. That's also what led us to have inflation, because demand skyrockets because things are cheap, but then that also increases the pricing too much to where it's things are more expensive than they should be. And Jerome Powell seems to be doing a pretty good job. I've no qualms against him. He sticks to his dual mandate of I think ensuring maximum employment and, lowering inflation. And that is his, that's what his basis is. The Federal Reserve, central bank, generally stays out of politics because they might need to make hard decisions that would get a politician unelected or not reelected, so to speak. Unelected. It would be political suicide, so to speak, for politicians to vote on lowering or raising interest rates when that could will be bad, or make hard decisions like a central bank induced recession that will be rough short term, but long term it will keep the economy healthy. And the Federal Reserve has many kind of mechanisms, not many, but they have mechanisms to where a central, the Fed chair, who Kevin Warsh is theorized to be, can't just lower interest rates. There's the Fed board, I believe, or the governors, which kind of acts like a Supreme Court where people vote on whether to lower interest rates or not. The way that those governors are picked varies, every year. I think it changes, and also every meeting, I think. Like they constantly swap out different people who vote on it depending on the regional central banks and like other things. So the idea is that one single person can't come in, then all of a sudden just crank interest rates down. It's like you need to get a more general consensus. People vote on it. And so there's tools there. That's why Trump has been going after Lisa Cook, because if she is removed, then Trump can put someone else on. And I think that might give a majority, or if not a break even, for the Federal Reserve governors, so that there's more likely to vote to lower interest rates. And the Supreme Court has recently heard that argument, and it seems like it's not going in Trump's favor. Notably, Jerome Powell attended that Supreme Court hearing, and people thought that it was interference. It was inappropriate for Jerome Powell to go. In this most recent Federal Reserve meeting, Jerome Powell said that there was precedent going because a previous Fed chair in the 80s or something attended a Supreme Court case in regards to something related to the central bank. So he said that there was precedent there. And separately, Jerome Powell is under criminal investigation. I'm using air quotes because it really seems like it's just a political tool that Trump is using to try and pressure Jerome Powell to, I don't know, lower interest rates or to quit or something. Jerome Powell broke from the general, I want to say tradition, because I don't know if there's any hard written rule, but the general, the institutional handshake deal, I guess, of the central bank not commenting on political happenings, and Jerome Powell fields questions during the after he announces whether the interest rate at the interest rates meeting, and he deflects a lot of questions because a lot of people ask about Trump's policies and what Trump is saying, and he said, it's not in my position to comment. And the criminal investigation is actually over the renovations for the Federal Reserve going over budget, which is like, dude, like, are you kidding me? It's like, if you, that's like, a government project going over budget is like, it raining, it's, I don't know, it's like it being the sun being out, so you need sunglasses. It's like, no shit, bro. And if it's just very hypocritical, I guess. Granted, it's politics, everyone's a hypocrite in a way, but it just more so seems to be a tool that Trump is using to pressure Jerome Powell at the Federal Reserve. And a lot of world leaders and world central bank leaders specifically spoke out in favor of Jerome Powell, saying that this is this is not good. When the Federal Reserve is, there are reasons why it stays separate from White House policy, and I think notably it's kind of split into monetary policy and fiscal policy. The Treasury Department handles the dollar, I think more so that the Federal Reserve controls interest rates, and I think maybe they could control like bonds, and if they buying bonds, like quantitative easing or quantitative tightening, which is, I think, just how much like they keep on the balance sheet, how much they buy back and stuff, and I don't know, kind of bonds like kind of run the world economy in a way, especially with the dollar and United States being the reserve currency, which is maybe coming out of fashion now with what Trump wants to do, devaluing the dollar. But I think Trump wants to devalue the dollar to be able to have it be used elsewhere, actually, which is like, sounds counterintuitive, but it kind of makes sense in a way. I don't, executing on it and actually having it play out how they want is something completely different. Anyways, there's also did I pull something up? In regards to Jerome Powell being criminally indicted, subpoenaed, as a part of a criminal investigation, a Republican senator on the I swear I had something up for this. So annoying. maybe it's in here. A Republican senator. What's his name? Oh yeah, Senator Tillis. Here we go. This guy who is on the he's on the committee to that picks the next Federal Reserve leader, the chair of the Federal Reserve. He said that as long as this criminal investigation to Jerome Powell is going on, he will not confirm someone new, in his hopes for Trump to drop it, because even he thought that this was an overstep by Trump, interfering with the trying to interfere with politics and inserting politics into the Federal Reserve's midst of the Federal Reserve. And so I think that is good. And also he said that this doesn't change anything, and that he needs Trump to drop that criminal investigation. And there's also something notable that technically Jerome Powell could stay on as a Federal Reserve governor who I think votes on interest rates and such, like the Lisa Cook who I mentioned. And usually it seems like Federal Reserve chairs kind of resign that position when they're done with their term as the chair of Federal Reserve, but there's potentially been rumors that Jerome Powell would stay on in hopes to continue to have, that voting power and help take the Federal Reserve instill the way that he sees fit, in regards of the two mandates that the Federal Reserve have: maximum employment and keeping inflation down. So yeah, and Trump is trying to put in kind of I use the word crony, but just someone that he could control. That's how I see it. He wants a loyalist. And I'm curious what someone like Kevin Warsh would do in the Federal Reserve as the chair to kind of disrupt things, like Trump has been doing kind of in the, federal government. And I'm also curious as to what he could even do. Like, it just doesn't really seem like he can do much. He could obviously convince people to do things, but ultimately I think people, the governors and such, need to still vote. They still need to vote. So yeah, it says Warch actually served as a Fed Board of Governors from 2006 to 2011, playing a crucial role behind the scenes in Washington's rescue of Wall Street during the financial crisis. If confirmed by the Senate, he would succeed Jerome Powell, which term chairs by May. The Fed chair nomination was arguably the most important personnel decision Trump faced for a remainder of his term, because the central bank serves as a first responder to financial crises and sets interest rates that affect every corner of the economic market. Yeah, Warsh will inherit a central bank divided over whether to cut interest rates. Yeah, and as we've been kind of these past few meetings, there have been more dissents, as in people voting for lowering interest rates or lowering them more, or just not at all. And that hasn't happened. So if Jerome Powell thinks that we shouldn't raise interest rates, then people are voting that we should. Then I think that's like a dissent, so to speak. And that actually hasn't happened in a long time. I think there's past incidents where it seems like the chair just wants to know what to expect in a way, and if he talks to people and they tell them that how they're kind of thinking, and then they don't vote like that, then that's kind of a surprise to the chair. And I think generally it's kind of a big deal when people dissent. Warsh will inherit central bank divided over the cut interest rates further. Several Fed officials are uneasy about cutting when inflation remains above the central bank's 2% target. Yeah, inflation I think is still around 4% or so. And notably, I think the labor market is now being they keep saying the labor market is healthy, but the data that they use, the jobs data has really shown that healthcare has been one of the only positive growths for in terms of job. There's been more healthcare jobs, and that's really it. They're carrying the payroll for the entire country. As we're seeing with all these tech layoffs and such, and the unemployment rate for young people is high. When was this? This is 2025. What just happened? Yeah, but here's the 4.4% current unemployment rate. For younger people, I want to say it's like 10%. The Fed, yeah, here we go. This is actually exactly what I wanted. 10% for young people, because interest rate, entry level jobs are becoming harder to get, especially because I want to say AI, but also I think it's more so companies just don't want to take on. They don't really need these entry level roles as much. I don't know, but this is all going to like catch up. When young people can't participate in the economy, like long term, like this is not good, and you should really be, they feel like they should be focusing on this. But just in general, it's like they're kind of describing as the K-shaped economy, where if you are already wealthy, or you already are well off, then you're probably doing fine. But those who are trying to climb up the ladder, or who maybe have been struggling these past few years, you're struggling even more. It's because, and even though GDP is rising and everything, it's very uneven. Those who are the top 1%, top 0.1%, 0.01%, they're kind of hoarding all that wealth. They're the ones who are profiting off of all these these new technologies and such, and it's very uneven. Wealth inequality is a big thing for me personally. I think that is, in general, just one of the largest issues right now, and I wish you'd be doing more to be able to share the success and share the wealth of people. Not saying to just give handouts, but we needed to be doing more than what we're doing now. That's sure as hell the case. So yeah, I don't know. Anyways, yeah, Warsh gained a reputation as being an inflation hawk during and after leaving the Fed, because he spent years warning that easy monetary policy would fuel rising prices. And generally the case that is true. That's how, raising interest rates too low will cause demand to spike too high, which is, exactly how we got to inflation before, after COVID, where everyone was all of a sudden just spending money again after not spending it for a while, and interest rates were low. Just like demand just skyrocketed, and it, caused inflation, where arguably prices are still going up, or they are still high when, compared to in the past, because I feel like more so inflation, the prices stay the same, but maybe the people just get used to them. I don't know, because I think in general, it's like things are still pretty expensive. And the biggest thing here too is, going back to the jobs thing, is that wage growth has not kept steady with the pricing of inflation, and also big things like housing. It's like wage growth is stagnated, and that kind of goes into the kind of top few percent kind of hoarding a lot of that wealth. And if you own stock, you own the big tech companies, you've been doing fine. But not everyone has that. Not everyone can buy stock. Some people still can hardly afford rent, and so it's like rent prices are another big thing too. So it's like, yeah, it's the economy is very uneven right now. Yeah, it's like Warsh will also have to satisfy a president who has made clear he expects rates to fall, and who has shown no patience for Fed chairs who disappoint him, i.e. Jerome Powell. Trump showered praise on Powell after nominating him in 2017, only to lash out regularly when the Fed buckled his demand for lower rates. Trump has signaled that he doesn't want to make what he regards as the same mistakes again. Anybody that disagrees with me will never be Fed chairman. And, that statement itself is very problematic, because the Fed chairman should be making their decisions, outside of the influence of the president or the White House. Obviously not in a vacuum, but just because Trump says he wants lower rates, that doesn't merit any reason to lower them, as far as the Fed is aware. At least that's how it's supposed to work. So, the fact that he says that is a little scary, because now it's like, will they just lower interest rates when maybe we shouldn't, when the data says, the opposite? Will inflation come back? The fact that Warsh seemed to be an inflation hawk previously, might be a good sign, but it's like, will he actually execute on that, especially with Trump breathing down his neck? And, I'd be a little spooked, if all of a sudden, you start disagreeing with Trump and then Jerome Powell's under, a criminal investigation. Like, I don't know if that's how things should work, really, Yeah, and here we go. This is the part I want to talk about. Warsh will have to be confirmed by the Senate, a process that has been complicated by Justice Department probe of the central bank. Senator Tom Tillis, Republican of North Carolina, who sits on the banking committee that handles Fed nominations, wrote on social media Friday that Warsh is a qualified nominee with deep understanding monetary policy, but he said he would oppose the nomination until the investigation resolved. And that is the investigation, the criminal investigation of Jerome Powell that I've been mentioning. Tillis could block Warsh from getting approval by the banking committee, given the panel's narrow 13-11 Republican majority. So, yeah, but I feel like you might need if all Democrats oppose the nomination, GOP leaders would then try to bypass the committee and bring the matter directly to the floor. But I don't know how that would, like, what's the, is it like, come on. Okay, here we go. Republicans 53-45, but two independents. Also, I think if we consider, actually no, I don't know, but okay, so it is tight, but I think there's been I want to say there's been other members of the Senate, because there's a lot of like institutionalist type of people where they're Republicans, maybe they value small government still, or a little more libertarian, but they still value the Fed's independence. Like they still believe that in these institutions in a way. And I think that there will be, I could see there being other Senate members who don't want that. And I don't know if you need like the 60 vote or the supermajority or whatever in the Senate to confirm this. Let's keep reading. Maybe they'll say, beyond managing Trump's expectations, Warsh will face challenges with few modern precedents, managing any trade-offs from tariff-related price increases after several years of about target inflation. The inflation thing is a big thing too, because Trump still can't make up his mind, and he just willy-nilly throws out inflation, in tariff threats, and then he just like doesn't follow through on them. But like, it's like the seesaw, this like going back and forth. Snip, snap, as Michael would say from, Michael Scott from The Office. And that's like doesn't help in understanding, how tariffs might affect prices or inflation. Assessing how artificial intelligence is reshaping productivity and labor markets, and responding to the rise of digital currencies that could disrupt banking industry, which is regulated by the Fed. Yeah. Mark Carney, the Canadian Prime Minister. Mark Carney also notably was previously head of a central bank himself. Previously governed the Bank of Canada, and governed the Bank of England. So I think he knows what he's talking about to some sense. Warsh is a fantastic choice to lead the world's most important central bank at this crucial time. The praise was notable given Carney's recent sharp criticism of the Trump's geopolitical leadership. Yeah, Carney's kind of saying we're in a new world order, which, yeah. Though Carney, a former central banker, and Warsh have long moved in the same circles. Yeah, so that's one thing. Fed cut interest rates 3 times last year to guard against the risk of a sharper than expected slowdown in the labor market. Yeah, and I think this is still the case, at least how I see it, especially as someone who's looking for jobs right now and cannot get any bites despite quite a lot of applications. But the central bank held rates steady this week in a range about 3.5 and 3.7%. Trump has demanded rates go lower still and told the Wall Street Journal in December he thinks rates should be at 1% or even lower. Like, I know, bro. Like, okay, dude. He lashed out at Powell after the Fed's decision Wednesday to hold rates steady. He's hurting our country and its national security, Trump said on social media, referring to the chair as a moron. Like, You think this helps, dude? Like, come on. Warsh left the Fed. I love just calling the president dude also. Bro. Dude. Warsh left the Fed 15 years ago and has spent much of the time since cataloging how he thought the institution was going to astray. His steady drumbeat of criticism of Powell, never a liability with Trump, kept his name in the convention after President returned to White House 1 year ago. Yeah, because there's also Kevin Hassett, who I believed was I thought he's who's gonna be picked. Yeah, this guy. But he's also head of the national, what is it? Yeah, National Economic Council, and Trump wanted to keep him in this position instead. And I think even prediction markets had Kevin Hassett as the top pick. Yeah, Warsh left the Fed 15 years ago, spent most of that time since cataloging how he thought the institution was going astray. His steady drumbeat of criticism. Oh, I see. Okay, I see. I didn't realize this was Warsh's criticism. The transition could mark the most significant change of the guard since the Fed since 1979, when Paul Volcker took over and dramatically reoriented the institution's approach to inflation. Every chair since Alan Greenspan replaced Volcker in 1987 has emphasized continuity with his or her predecessor. Warsh has promised a clear rupture, a wholesale rethinking of the Fed's assets holding, policy framework, role in the economy, and relationship with the executive branch. Yeah, this last part is notable in my opinion because this is the scary part. Former colleagues say Warsh's sharp criticism of the Fed shouldn't obscure his abilities. He's very smart, both intellectually and his ability to read the room, said Donald Cohn, a former Fed vice chair who worked closely with Warsh. Cohn said he disagreed with many of Warsh's critiques, and especially with the caustic tone with which they've been delivered. But he added he knows he will need to use his considerable skills to marshal evidence and analysis to support the direction he wants to take the policy. Yeah, though I think the scary part, though, as well, is that, you know, it's arguably been harder to trust the kind of stats that are coming out of, you know, the federal government because of just, you know, again, like the partisanship that Trump really wants and the loyalty that, you know, he wants people within the federal government to like show. And, you know, it's like, okay, well, like, are these numbers, you know, like going to actually reflect what's going on, or are they going to just be smudged a bit so that, you know, then the Fed could use that as evidence to boost interest, you know, rates, like, you know, so, you know, I do think that that is also a concern. And also with the government shutdown, you know, like we didn't get information, like there was no data, like the Federal Reserve needs that data to make its decisions, and if they don't have it or it's outdated, they can't make as informed a decision. You know, that's a concern too. And I think we may go into a partial shutdown this weekend. I don't know. The stakes are considerable. The Fed sets short-term interest rates, but long-term rates, which determine mortgage costs, car loans, the government's borrowing costs depend heavily on whether investors trust the central bank to keep inflation under control. And notably, long-term interest rates really haven't budged. That's, you know, why mortgage rates really haven't gone down as much. And I think if anything, they've actually ticked up a bit. Let's look at them right here. This is not what I want. 30-year fixed mortgage. Yeah, here we go. This is pretty much what we want. Yeah, and we could see the 30-year, like it's pretty much been the same. These are the auctions that happened that get released. These I used to, you know, buy a bunch of treasury bills, and I buy them directly from the Treasury Direct site, just to keep my money safe. And you get a little bit more favorable interest rate, but at the cost of liquidity. So, you know, your money's tied up for, you know, 4 weeks here, but you get, you know, a little bit more favorable interest rate than kind of what we're seeing. And now it's 3.72. which, you know, if you're you probably get, if your savings account matches tracks to the if the bank you have your savings account and tracks the Federal Reserve interest rates, it's probably around 3.5% or lower. So you get a little bit more margin. And that really only helps if you have like a lot of money, but still. Anyways, yeah, so you can see that, you know, the long term do not match with the short term ones. And you can see it actually ticked up quite a bit. It got up to 4.991. And it's been, you know, on average around this. You could see further back though. I wish there was a chart. It doesn't just. Oh, I see. Apply. I don't know. Can't find it. There we go. Yeah, and just mortgage rates are ticking out a little bit, but yeah, they're still, you know, pretty much been in the 6% range, not moving down like as fast. And that's, you know, trailing this, you know, 4% or whatever for the longer term. So yeah, and this is kind of when the post-COVID here, when interest rates were really low, if not zero. And this is also when everyone's trying to buy a home. And we can see previous to then, you know, they've been pretty steady. And I think, you know, like below 5%, it's a much more reasonable. You can see this is like post 2008 here, which makes sense. Yeah, they're expensive though. Like we're probably like we're around like here. Last time it was that price. Yeah, Warship finalists who include Kevin Hassett, the director of the White House National Economic Council, that's what we just looked at, Christopher Waller, sitting Fed governor, and BlackRock executive Rick Ryder. I'm so glad they didn't pick the BlackRock bro. Like, last thing you need is some private equity person coming in to control federal interest rates. Like, that would have been the worst pick. So I think that's a win. Not picking this guy. On Friday, Trump said Hassett would remain in his role as the National Economic Council director. Trump wrote on social media that there was great speculation that highly respected Kevin Hassett was going to be named chairman of the Fed, and a great chairman he would have been. But quite honestly, doing an outstanding job working with me and my team at the White House. All right. Yeah, so yeah, we'll see. We'll see. I'm a little nervous for this, and just I don't really know like how markets will react as well. I'm just curious how that's gonna play out. Also, I really like. I've been seeing Wall Street Journal do this more, and I really think this is a good like use of video, like especially short form, like vertical. Makes me think of like Harry Potter or something. You know, when they're like reading the newspaper and like everything's like moving. Kind of gives me that vibe of kind of having me frameless. I think it's cool. Okay, that's gonna do it for today's stream. How long did we stream? 2 hours. Good solid stream. We'll be back next week. Probably either Wednesday or Friday again. Those 2 days just work well for me. I don't have anything else going on. And yeah, hopefully you learned something. We're informed. Found today's stream interesting. We'll keep following all this stuff. Next week we have more earnings, more tech earnings. Google, Qualcomm, Cloudflare, ARM, Uber, Snap, Take-Two, which I'm curious. Take-Two because they are Rockstar's parent company who making GTA 6 and it's people think it's gonna be delayed again. It was already delayed, so curious how that's gonna go. Who else? Robinhood, Spotify, Lyft. Oh, Amazon's next week too. Reddit. Although I don't care about Reddit. I sold Reddit, so I don't care. Roblox, which is interesting. PayPal, AMD. Those are big ones. Palantir. There's also the Web Summit in Qatar. I wonder what that is going to be consist of. Oh, the Cisco AI Summit too. That's next week. Hopefully we'll get some good interviews from that. Maybe we could watch here on stream. Yeah, I'm sure there'll be some crazy ass shit that happens in the next week, in general. So I'm sure we'll have something to talk about. But yeah, thanks everyone for tuning in. Subscribe. Check out my website, bradybellini.com. You can subscribe there. The form's actually working now. And to get future newsletter stuff. Wait. Colin Kaepernick. I'm just browsing. What? He's a fucking tech CEO? Like, what? Former 49ers quarterback. Lumi, an AI-driven storytelling platform advancing literacy by empowering students. What? Hang on, let's look into this real quick. Lumi.education. This is so random. Like, what a pivot. Interesting. Looks clean. Like, I don't know. Wow. So random. So random. Honestly, Questlove too. Like, I'm curious what what he will have to say. This is the Web Summit. This name is insane. I also think there's a Saudi Arabia, especially their sovereign wealth fund. But this is Qatar, so I don't want to. I don't know who's. This is Qatar, not Saudi Arabia. But there's been a lot of Middle East investment in AI, and such. So I'm curious. 11 Labs CEO, 11 Labs notable for their voice, AI voice stuff. Obviously Canva's been big. Never heard of these other guys. Meta World Peace. Wow, I haven't heard that name in a minute. Logan Paul. Oh, this guy Chris. I've seen this guy before. CEO of Aura, IBM. Okay, wow. Anyways, all right. Thanks for tuning in, everyone. Subscribe, and I'll be streaming Wednesday or Friday of next week. So you can check out on Twitch, or YouTube here. So see you guys next week. BRB screen, because I haven't made an ending screen. Bye. Let's end on a song. End on a fun song. And the crowd goes wow. Thanks for tuning in, everyone. See you next week. Bye.